Alright, welcome back. This is going to be part 4 of building the Wilson II, and I just left off with we're still building the upright frame, and the video is getting kind of long, so I decided to stop and split this up into two different parts. So I'm picking up from where I left off in video 3, and so where we're at right now is we have the upright frame mostly put together. We have the X-axis has been put into place here, and it's now free to move up and down the whole height of the machine. And the next thing to do is to get our threaded rods put into place. So the first thing that you should do is to get the flexible shaft couplers. So they're 5 millimeters on one side and 8 on the other, and we'll put one of those over each of the Z motors. So locate the flat side of that shaft if you have one, and put that side of the coupler down and just tighten the lower set screw on each one. And you want them to be about less than halfway down, so that the shaft stops, the lower half of this thing. Okay, now get the threaded rods that you're using. So these are 300 millimeters long, and on each side just put those down from through the hole in the top mount, and then thread it through the nut in the X end, and then down to that coupler. And make sure that you're finding that's getting seated down into that coupler properly. You might have to back these set screws out. There you go. So see how it should slide all the way down until it hits the shaft of the motor, and then you want to raise it up a little bit from there so that those two aren't hitting each other. Alright, and that's all it takes to get those into place. Now you should be able to turn the two and raise the X-axis up. And while we're here, let me say something about these lead screws and how you should lubricate them. They're real low friction. You can really tell, immediately, but you still should lubricate these. And if you can get some sort of lubricant with PTFE in it, this is Tri-Lube, but there's different, or Tri-Flow, but there's different brands, and put a couple drops of that, on the lead screw right above those brass nuts. That is a good idea. I think you can also use like a 3-in-1 oil, but you want something there that's meant for lubrication. The nice thing about PTFE versions of this lubricant is you can also use it on the smooth rods if you want to. You might have to do that actually before you put the bearings on, because a lot of bearings have little rubber seals that will wipe it away. But whatever you do, Do not use WD-40 on anything on your machine. WD-40 is a rust solvent. It's not a lubricant. I see that come up a lot. People ask, so now you know too. Don't use that, it'll ruin them. The next thing that I want to do is put the belt on the X-axis. So turn the whole frame around so that you can see the backside of the X carriage and get the remaining piece of GT2 timing belt. And this is real easy to put on. Right here, on the back of the X carriage is a little piece with the ridges printed into it to hold the belt. So just loop, push that down into that spot, and then loop it back around and leave yourself about, you know, ½ an inch or so of belt here, and then you can secure that loose end with a 1 or 2 zip ties. And the teeth of the belt will hit each other. They'll be against each other, so that's going to also help keep that from coming loose. Then thread the belt through the idler pulley, or idler bearing. Make sure that the belt is not twisted, and then it goes under the X carriage and then through. If I zoom back out, so around the pulley, not twisted, then it goes through here and then back through this slot on the end of the motor end. So just feed it through there. Around the pulley and then back through the same opening. Double check that it's on the pulley properly. So like that. And then it ends up back here in the same spot, so just pull it tight, push that down into that slot, wrap it around, and then another zip tie right here. And if you end up over here without enough belt and maybe extra on the first side, then you just, you know, undo it and redo it until you have it right. I think I've got enough here. Now the tension on the X belt again is set by this tensioner screw on the outside. So on this side, if you turn that clockwise, it'll pulls the entire tensioner mechanism outward. That way it makes this tighter. So check that. It should be nice and, you know, nice and tight, but you don't have to overdo it. And there's that. Alright, so next we are ready to attach the Y-axis to our frame. So set this back and get your assembled Y-axis and loosen the screws in each of these 4 brackets if they're not already, so that you can push them out of the way and get the 2 over here. Push the print bed over so that you can get to these 2. And what we want to do is we want to lock the 2 on the motor side into place first. So the way to do that is get either a ruler or ideally a pair of calipers like this that you can lock into place, and zero those out and set them to 130 millimeters approximately, and then tighten that so that they're locked into place so they can't move. And this is the distance here that we want those brackets to be from the motor end. Let me show you specifically what I'm talking about. If you measure right here from the inside to the inside of the bracket, this is the distance that I want to be 130 millimeters. And the exact distance isn't the crucial part here, but what is that whatever we set this one to, the one on the other side, this one needs to be exactly the same, because if these two are not equal distances from the motor, then your whole y-axis will be off kilter, like it'll be on a diagonal, so your prints will not be accurate. So set the first one, then with the calipers still locked into place, it's pretty easy then just to set that inside, same spot against the same inside edges. Slide that one over and tighten it down, and then go back again to the first one to just, you know, to double check yourself that your caliper didn't move around, or if you're using a ruler, you know, go back and forth here a couple times and make sure that it's the same amount within, you know, a millimeter or so. So 130. That one's 130. Okay. Now you can place this over the frame, put the motor away from you through here. And now those two brackets that are locked down will go right against this lower beam, and the other two are going to slide forward against the other one. Now, as far as the position of the print bed left and right, you want it pretty well centered. You can kind of eyeball that part. It's not super critical, but the better you put the location of this, the more print area that your machine will be able to get to. So to help you understand why that's true, if you slide this all the way back and you put this all the way to the left, then this corner here is where the origin will be. So when the machine starts to print, this is the 0, 0 spot. So you want this to be right centered right about where this hole is, and when it's all the way to the right, wherever it is here, that's how far to the right you'll be able to get. So if you were to position the whole bed, you know, clear over to the left side, then you might end up with a little bit of area that you can't quite use. So it's just it's not a real big thing, but just center this is the goal. So what before you tighten these this way, you want to actually tighten these two brackets against this rod. So to do that, first of all, I got to get my T-slot nuts kind of lined up here. One in front of each bracket. And if you can get down here and do it with this sitting on the table, that's fine. If you can't, then what you can do, I'm going to move this whole thing back, is you can set the machine in like this, and you'll need to prop this side up with something. Let me grab a book real quick. I can just leave that like that. Here's a box. So something that will keep it about level. So now with it like this, it's actually pretty easy to see, you know, where these all go. You can just kind of center it again, kind of eyeball that, and then we're going to attach these two first. So these are the two that are still free to move this way. These are just holding it up at the moment, and then we'll get to that. So get a couple more of those 10mm M5s. Okay, now that these are attached to this one, and these two are attached to these, we can go ahead and tighten down the back two here, which are a little quicker to get to. Now we just have one more pair back here to get to. Just have to hold this up and get those T-slot nuts lined up. Now we have our entire frame put together. So what we'll do next is actually build the extruder assembly and then get that mounted on here. And then after that it's just hooking up electronics, putting the power supply in place, and we will be ready to print.